Hello and welcome to the February Appoquinimink School Board of Education meeting. I'm Michelle Wall. It's nice to see the room so full. Welcome to everyone who's joining us on Zoom as well. We're going to start tonight like we start all of our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance, so if you'll join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. The school board went into executive session at 5 o'clock on the motion of Ms. Graham and the second of Mr. Forston to discuss legal and personnel matters. Dr. Burrows, are there any adjustments to the agenda?
Just a minor adjustment. Last month, we had a meeting and a public hearing about the excess parcel of land. We are taking any comment on the excess parcel of land tonight, but we will have our final vote on taking the recommendation or the bid that we received on that at our March meeting.
Thank you. I was also informed that we will be moving around the recognitions a little bit to accommodate.
Absolutely. So recognition under 5A, A will move this down underneath D.
Thank you. With that being said, we're going to start with the special recognitions, and we're going to start with the Delaware All-State Choir. I've been asked to inform everybody in attendance that there will be a district link posted with photos. So if you're not in a vantage point for an ideal photo, they will be available on the district webpage.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Laura Sebastiano. I'm the proud arts specialist for the school district. Back in December, we had a number of students audition for the Delaware All-State Choir, and we were very excited to see that 31 students from our school district were accepted into the All-State Choirs. There are two choirs within this. The first is the junior choir, which is grades 7 and 8, and then there's the senior choir, which is grades 9 through 12. Those students will be participating in the Delaware All-State Choir Festival later this month, culminating in a concert on Saturday, February 24th. You can access tickets for that event by reaching out to any of the students' music teachers or by visiting DelawareMEA.org, which is the overall organization for all-state music in our state. We're going to bring in each school at a time along with their teacher. To keep things moving smoothly and efficiently, we'd like to ask that you allow the teacher to read all of the names from their school and hold your applause until those names have been read. So first, without any further ado, we'll welcome the students from A.G. Waters Middle School along with their teacher, Miss Emily Jones.
Unable to make it tonight, we had Sunvi Kondabolu, Danica Bokniak, Samuel Leibowitz, and Jane Schaefer.
Congratulations to our Alfred G. Waters students. Next, we're welcoming students from Cantwell's Bridge Middle School, along with their teacher, Mr. Shane Hurley.
Thank you. Cool. All right. Unable to make it tonight, we have Larissa Bongiorno. We have Megan Gettings. Ryan Vitsorik. And Sean Young.
Scoot in a little bit more.
And congratulations to Cantwell's Bridge. I will be introducing the students from Appoquinimink High School. Many of these students are not present today because they're very busy preparing for their show, which opens this weekend. You should come and see it. But we do have 2 students from Appo here. They can come on in. We have Siddharth Sharma and Isha Swaminathan. All right. Next on down is Middletown High School students, along with their band teacher is filling in for us tonight, Mr. Christopher Parks.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Parks. I'm actually the band director at Middletown High School. I'm not their choir teacher, but I work with all of these students really closely. I'm really excited to be recognizing them this evening. I left my list in my pocket. I'm sorry. Yeah, right here. Ava Damiani, Nathan Duffy, Camille Ellis, Devin Ellis, Delaney Friedel. I'll give him a second to get called up. Avery Hamill, Marina Pregel, Angelica Rodriguez, Chase Stone, and Cambria Sturdivant.
Arranged by height, tall, back. If you're tall, go to the back. There we go. Okay, squeeze her in real quick. If you're tall, head to the back. Good. Squeeze in.
Squeeze a little bit more this way.
I got you. Tell your kids to smile.
Congratulations to Middletown High School students. And last but not least, we are welcoming our students from Odessa High School. Again, we have a band teacher filling in for a busy choir teacher tonight, welcoming Mr. Brian Enline along with them.
Good evening. As Ms. Sebastiano already alluded to, I am not the choir director. My name is Brian Enline. I'm the band director at Odessa High School, and I have the distinct pleasure of recognizing some incredible musicians, as you already know. And we would like to recognize I'm going to mess all these up, so I'm going to take my notes out and make sure I practice so much. Aubrey Free, Juliana Schechter, and Jack Zim.
And congratulations to our students from Odessa. And lastly, if I can just ask for one last round of applause for all of these wonderful musicians out in the hall.
The next item on the agenda will be the Beats Makers, Dr. Small and Kendra Moritz Rosner.
Good evening, everyone. I know we have a packed house tonight, and I know why you're really here. Beatsmaker Award. Yeah, thank you, Ms. Wong. I appreciate it. So our Beastmaker Award celebrates staff who are nominated for exhibiting our Appoquinimink Beats: collaboration, communication, critical thinking, creativity, and engagement. Tonight, we are celebrating 3 staff members and several students, and we thank them for their contributions to the work of being recognized for the Apple Beastmaker Award. First, we have someone who we just saw come in and do an introduction, recognized for collaboration, communication, creativity, critical thinking, and engagement by Shelley Wong. We have Mr. Brian Inline. In case you didn't know who Shelley Wong was, you just heard her. Recognized by Cara Antonuccio for collaboration, communication, and engagement, Miss Lindsay Davis. Okay. And last but not least, recognized by Mr. Jesse McNulty for collaboration, communication, creativity, critical thinking, and engagement, we have Miss Kendra Moritz Rosner. We're going to get a quick picture with the group of teachers, and then we have a special presentation by Kendra. When Kendra was recognized by Mr. McNulty, he shared that there was a group of students that helped in the recognition in order to get her to the point where she was an awardee for the Beatsmaker Award. So rather than just recognizing the teacher, we thought tonight would be special in the sense that we got an opportunity to recognize the students that contributed to this great work by Kendra. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the microphone over to Kendra.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank you for being here and for the families that took some time out for their students who are doing great work. At Laurel Grove, we're doing a really unique thing. We are opening up a cafe. It's been running since about two months ago. It's called the Loyal Cup Cafe. The students are running it, and it is absolutely incredible. Students have just got done looking at data from the first quarter, making sure that we are doing what's best, and very much better than Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts. They have such a competition ahead of them, let me tell you. These kids are going to be millionaires whenever they grow up. We're doing a great job. We're doing great work. I'm very proud of them, and I would love to recognize them now. Not here tonight is Arunj Bangaru and also Brandon Liu. This is Delaney Chaz. And we have Nico Diva. Carter Esperance, Julia Hackett, Charlie Henry, Hamza Hussein, Jay Starquin, Rowan Kilbride, Layla Laborde, Winnie Lee, Taryn Markle, River Miller, Evan Ramirez, Srinitha Ramasetti, Sanvi Sawant, Rayan Singh, Sybil Smith, Aiden Somerville, and Rayan Yousaf. Let's give a round of applause for all these amazing students.
All right, picture time.
want everybody looking right here. Oh, bless you. You okay? Couple more.
Big smiles, big smiles. Great job.
Good job, you guys.
Great job, ladies and gents.
There you go.
Yep. You can. Two more. Then there's like a. Okay. All right, moving on. I'm going to give a second for people to move on out or find a seat. Moving on with our special recognitions, the next item on the agenda is the Psi Iota 2024 Educator of the Year, Mr. Greg Bunkley. You guys all want to? Don't know who's coming.
Well, my name is not Greg Bunkley. He could not make it here. He was double booked. But my name is Eddie Armour. I am the chaplain of the Psi Iota chapter, which is located in Dover, Delaware, of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Our fraternity was founded November 17th, 1911 on the campus of Howard University. We have 4 cardinal principles: manhood, scholarship, perseverance, and uplift. And in the spirit of scholarship, we have a banquet where we recognize and honor those pillars of our community that are truly uplifting our communities. This year, we had the distinct honor to recognize one of your very own, Ms. Mondaria Galloway, for Educator of the Year.
Oh, okay.
I'm back.
All right. Give your space back.
Yeah. That is going to conclude our special recognition portion of the evening. The recognition that was listed on the agenda as item A is going to be moved to another later date. Now we are at the section of the agenda, public comment. I'm going to read a statement that we read each month before public comment. Everyone, giving people a second to find a seat. The board encourages speakers to be constructive in spirit of identifying issues and solutions that will better serve students. In an effort to afford an opportunity to hear from all members of the community who wish to address the board, comments shall be limited to 3 minutes or less per speaker. The time cannot be given to another. Repetition of matters previously presented in public comment is discouraged. Public comment is an opportunity to address the board. The board will not participate in discussions or respond to public comments. Members of the public are urged to address concerns at the local school level and with district office staff prior to addressing the board. No person shall initiate charges or complaints against individual district employees at a board meeting. Such charges or complaints shall be presented to the superintendent or the board in writing signed by the complainant. Any defamatory or abusive remarks shall be called out of order, and the speaker's privilege of addressing the board may be terminated. In order to further student business and our mission, we limit or eject attendees, virtual or in person, who disrupt the meeting or engage in vulgar or obscene expression. That being said, welcome. So glad that all of you are here. Hi, Shelley Wong. I'm going to start public comment with Mari. I'm going to Biseglia. I always feel like pretty good. There is a microphone over this way, behind my head, and above the monitor over here, you'll see a timer. And at 3 minutes, I will let you know that you've run out of time. Thank you very much.
Okay, can you hear me? Good evening. My name is Mari Biseglia, and I am a 5th grade special education inclusion paraeducator at Bunker Hill Elementary. I am honored to represent my fellow paraeducators as president of the Appoquinimink Educational Support Professionals. I am here tonight on behalf of the over 300 full-time paraeducators in our district to urge your support for keeping the operational 36-cent ask dedicated to educator recruitment and retention in the upcoming referendum in April. We speak with pride about Appoquinimink School District being the top district in the state. I ask you to consider what makes us number one. In economic terms, education is a service industry. Our product is our people, our staff, our amazing teachers, the incredible paraeducators, and the peerless support staff who show up for the children in our schools every day. We don't show up because Appo is number one. Appo is number one because we show up and we give our best to every student every day. We show up because we believe that every student in this district deserves an outstanding education. We believe in the unlimited potential of the beautifully diverse children that enter our classrooms every day. We know that we can help equip them with the tools they need to achieve their goals and change the world. We know their value, and we know our value too. Appoquinimink educators made our district number one in this state while consistently being the lowest paid in Newcastle County. Since 2020, teachers and paras find ourselves doing double and triple duty to cover staffing shortages while making sure student needs are being met. We show up for our district and our students every day. Staff burnout and attrition are real problems that are going to get worse if Appoquinimink is not able to offer more competitive salaries and fill vacancies. On behalf of the members of the AESP bargaining unit, I am urging you to do the right thing and make sure appreciation and respectful compensation aren't just words in the dictionary. We need you to show up for the employees of this district and stick with 36. We know our worth. I ask that you support your staff and show us and the community that you know our worth too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Denise Bradley.
Good evening. My name is Denise Bradley. I'm a proud paraeducator at AGW, Go Sharks, and the vice president of the AESP, or Para Union, as we are frequently noted. I was compiling my thoughts on what to say to the board and two important issues that I feel we're coming across in talking about the stick with 36 was transparency and compensation. The value of Stick with 36, as I spoke to the community and listened to people's opinion, a common theme was a lack of trust in the money in the referendum will be utilized for teachers and paraprofessional salaries. Like many of my fellow MOT citizens and coworkers, I remember the referendum of 2019, and all of us wore our little buttons, bridge the gap, with the promise of bringing our salaries close to those of our fellow professionals that live north, AKA above the canal. Today, I was going through and kind of checking some of my facts, and I rewatched a video that we produced in 2019 in support of that referendum. It was the importance of paying teachers to attract and retain the best talent. However, we stand here 4 years later, and that same video would still be relevant today. Our teachers are still the second lowest paid in the state, and we're asking to bring equity into our salary structure. I would love to tell all of our members a vote for the referendum would have a positive impact on our salaries and our financial well-being. We're standing here asking for the board to guarantee that the referendum money that is marked as an increase for educators, specifically professionals directly working with our students on a daily basis, will find their way into our bank accounts. A little research, according to the MIT Living Wage website, a living wage in Newcastle County is $37,000 for an individual and $77,000 for an individual with a child. A paraprofessional who does not have any children, who is rated highly qualified or has an associate's degree, we need to work for 8 years in the district to meet that threshold. 8 years. A paraprofessional with a child that even holds a bachelor's degree will never reach that threshold. The latest federal statistic shows the average person had a 4.4% increase in their salary last year. In contrast, mine was less than 1%. Combined with the last year's US annual rate of inflation of 6.45%, our salaries have decreased in value in the past year. I think it's important, as I walk into school every day, I see the demands of our fellow staff members face. We're supporting our students juggling tasks, performing roles, and since there's not enough staff to meet the growing needs, today's paraprofessionals are filling the roles of teachers and substitutes.
Time.
Yep,
Thank you. The next speaker is Scott Woodring.
Tell me when, boss.
Got 3 minutes.
All right, so first of all, I'm sorry I had to write this down. My wife timed this the first time and it was like 8 minutes. Your timer didn't start, by the way. So you've given me extra time. So anyway, so anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Scott Woodring. I'm a hopefully respected math teacher at Middletown High. I'm a parent in the district and I'm a taxpayer because we moved. I'm here to talk about this from a more dire perspective. If you lower this amount, it's beyond detrimental. Guys, I'm going to try and not cry in the third paragraph. So in November of 2015, I could have stayed in Seaford as a highly decorated math teacher, just lived out my career down there. My then girlfriend, my now wife, taught at Reading, and she's like, Apple is #1, this job open, come. I applied that day, and I got to work with your sister, and it was so much fun. Dr. Small saw me on my third day there, and he's like, how do you feel? And I said, I feel like Megatron if he got traded to the Patriots. If you don't know football in 2015, that was a very high compliment and a very arrogant comment from myself. But now I think ahead. I have a 7-year-old. We choiced him here when we lived in Dover. We bought in Townsend. He's had some of the most amazing teachers ever. Brianna, I love you. You had him twice in COVID. You are an angel among people. He's in first grade, and I can't believe I'm about to say what I'm about to say. I'm afraid that we're going to lose so many people that in 10 years, I don't know what he's going to see as a teacher. And I'm already talking about pulling him out of here after he leaves Old State. I never thought I would say that. I came here to be part of this winning team, and I'm afraid. Guys, I've been one of your biggest recruiters for this district, for this referendum. I've done all the math. I would try to recruit people. Nella Jean's like, Scott, do you know any math teachers? I'm like, I do. They either live down south or they won't take the pay cut. I had 4 really great people who I would have came here and they're like, nah, I can't do it. If we're talking about this money, I could give you all these stats, you know them, guys. We get $400 million in assessed commercial value in this district. The next lowest of the others is 1.1 billion. That's 3 times, and that's the lowest one. I know it's a big ask of everyone. Taxpayers, I'm talking to you out there. I'm one of you. I know this is a hard time. But we have to shoulder this burden because of the money. The median income of a teacher in this district is $4,400. I did the math again. I only got 15 years more. It's not going to hurt me as bad. If I was a first-year teacher starting here, that $4,400, if I put that in my 403B with a conservative, because I don't want to go too high, a conservative yield would be $475,000 added to my 403B upon retirement. How do you tell a kid out of college, which there's very few to begin with, you're going to lose $500,000 down the road coming here? So I got to shorten this up. Guys, we can't be the Baltimore Orioles. We can't expect to do well with the lowest salary in baseball. Everyone else is the Mets. They're losing, but they spend the money. Guys, whether you believe it or not, maybe not next year, but soon you're going to see an exodus out of this district that is on biblical proportions.
Michael McKibben.
Lots of tough acts to follow. My name is Mike McKibben. I'm here tonight as a parent, an educator, and a taxpayer. First, I want to thank the board for your dedication and commitment to the Appoquinimink School District. It doesn't go unnoticed, and it is appreciated. In terms of the capital referendum, I don't think you should change a thing. I think for a 3-cent increase in taxes, you're getting a lot of bang for your buck. You're getting the state to come in and fund 77% to build 3 brand new state-of-the-art schools that will educate generation after generation of Appoquinimink students and their families, and it's going to ease the overcrowding in the school system. I think it's important to remember that that referendum did not lose in a landslide. It lost by 334 votes. I think we can overcome that deficit in April and win the capital referendum. In terms of the operational referendum, you talked last meeting about how hard you worked and how much thought you put into that number of 43 cents, that it was a good number. It was the right number. And I think it was a good number in December, and I think it's going to be a good number in April. That referendum also did not win in a landslide. It won by 248 votes. And I don't think we should hold the referendum hostage tonight to those 248 no votes. You had 3,000 people who voted yes, who need support as well. We also know that there's a lot of yes votes who didn't come to the polls. They sat it out thinking it was going to win. I talked to 3 people today in a conference in Wilmington who sat it out, and they said they would be there in April to vote yes on the referendum. The final thing I want to address is the most popular part of the entire referendum, educator compensation. Right? It was popular on Facebook posts. It was popular in other social media sites. The 3 town hall meetings, even the town hall meeting where a lot of the community members spoke out against the referendum, were in support of educator compensation. And you don't know how magical that number is. You remember all those overworked, underpaid, undervalued, and burned out teachers we talked about last meeting and people talked about tonight? That 36 cents was a shot in the arm to them. That was a morale booster. They felt seen, they felt heard. They thought you had their backs in December, and we in turn had your back, because our survey showed that staff in Appoquinimink overwhelmingly came out and supported both the capital and the operational referendum, not by 248 votes, but by hundreds of votes. I think that you really need to stick with that 36, you need to stick with the 43, you need to stick with the 3. You need to trust your cabinet's recommendations. You need to trust the district leadership. You need to trust the families who have students in Appoquinimink schools. And most importantly, you need to trust your employees and your staff to educate and engage the employees and go out and win this referendum in April. Thank you very much.
And the last public comment I have is Steve Byers.
Bringing up the rear tonight. All right, good evening. I'm Steve Byers. I'm a Middletown High School social studies teacher. I've been in this district for 15 years. I'm also an announcer at the Middletown sporting events, parent of a 5th grader in the district, and president of 1,100 bargaining unit members of the Appoquinimink Education Association. I say all of this as an introduction because I'm one of just many staff in this district who wear many hats in the community. Some are club advisors, some are coaches, athletic directors, some are theater moms and dads, some are band parents. Still others are mentors, school moms, school dad, lunch buddies, the list goes on. All are doing more than their quote unquote contractual job. This time of year, we acknowledge just how important educators are when we have nominations for Counselor of the Year, Teacher of the Year, Behavioral Specialist of the Year, etc. This is why I'm so proud to represent each and every one of them tonight when I ask you to stick to 36 for educator compensation. Our district is now at a crossroads. You will shape the future of our district by the decisions you make here tonight. I ask you respectfully, do you want to be the district that continues to fall behind in compensating staff, a gap that if continued will put even more stress on our system? Or do you want to provide them with a competitive salary, one that help retain your current staff and recruit new staff to come here? Do you want to be a district of overcrowded classrooms and buildings, or one with state-of-the-art schools that provide students and staff the needed facilities to be innovative? You have big decisions to make tonight. In your last meeting, Michelle Wall stated that you would never put a number out to the public that you were not behind. You had a need in December, and you still have the same need here tonight. So the number should not change. What needs to change is our message, and quite frankly, our promotion to the public. We need to tell our stories, make it very clear to our community that if we want to maintain the high quality education of the Appoquinimink School District, we must pass this referendum at the amount proposed. Failure to do so will result in a very different school district, one that is even more understaffed with unfilled vacancies, one with overcrowded classrooms, one with out-of-date technology, and one that lacks safety measures this referendum can provide. I understand the concern expressed about the last referendum being voted down. I participated in those community town halls. It was clear to me that the most no votes will always be no votes. We need to focus our message instead on those who did not vote. We need to educate our community, especially our young parents, whose children will grow up in this district over the next 10 to 12 years. Mrs. Wall mentioned that she wants to give the current and future students the same opportunities her kids had in this district. We want that too. I will say it again, what I said last time. Where others see potential crisis, I see a potential to make a positive change. Send the right message with your decisions tonight. Support the cabinet's recommendation. Stick to 36 for educator recruitment and retention. Thank you for your consideration, and thank you for what you do to the school district. Woo!
Thank you. Moving on in the agenda is the report section of the meeting, and we're going to start with the superintendent's report. Dr. Burrows.
Good evening. Thank you for coming out tonight. We appreciate everyone's interest in our upcoming referendum and appreciate the support. We've filled 703 positions at this time. We currently have 66 full-time teaching openings and 35 full-time para openings. This week, as Steve mentioned, is National School Counseling Week. So please reach out to your school counselors and thank them. We have grown 78 students since our unit count. We just had to submit our mid-year unit count, so we're interested to see what funding we'll receive from that. Thank you again to Michelle Wall and the rest of the school board for advocating for the mid-year our mid-year unit count and the funding. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you. That's brief. Moving on in the agenda, the high school course catalog, Mr. Hoover and Mr. Trago. Welcome.
Good evening. I am Nick Hoover. I'm the Director of Secondary Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, and I'm here with Mr. Mike Trago. He was just going to wave.
I was just going to wait.
Okay, he's just going to wave. This was well rehearsed. We are here to talk about our pathway guide and give the board a course catalog update. We first wanted to start with our purpose, and the purpose of the Appoquinimink Pathways is to provide students with equitable options and opportunities to grow as learners through both experiential and academically rigorous coursework. So that's both inside of the classroom as well as outside. So let's talk about the process a little bit before we get into the course catalog itself. So first, what we do is we have some review meetings, right? We take our current course catalog, we do some surveys, we have some meetings to discuss, what it looks like now, what are some possible changes. Let's look at that feedback. You can see the groups of people that we meet with. We take that feedback, we take some of those suggested changes, make some changes, again, meet again, get some more feedback, and so on, until we come to a final draft and our final edits, which I see you flipping through now, so that's good. So we're going to talk about the updates for this year. We have 3 updates. The first, I think, is super exciting, is the addition of an aerospace pathway. The second, and I think... All right.
Mommy's listening.
Good job, Mommy, being an involved
It's been a while
parent.
since I've been Zoom bombed. All righty. The second one is the removal of the JROTC as a pathway, but adding it as a concentration. We were here earlier this year. I can't remember what month. Yeah, November-ish, talking about that transition. And then the final update you'll see there is that we are replacing some existing ag pathways with 3 brand new ag pathways. So a tradition that we've had here, at least for the last several years, is getting some of our students to participate in this. And so I'm happy to say that as you're looking at that course catalog, that has been designed, the concept has been designed by a student of ours, Lauren Navarro, and she is an Appoquinimink High School student, and she's in the digital communication technology pathway. So we are excited that each year we try to incorporate our students from the pathway into that design. So thank you, Lauren, for that. Okay, so some highlights here. I'm not going to read everything on there. Just talk a little bit about what you're going to see there. You're going to see 24 pathways. As we mentioned before, our purpose is to provide both experiential as well as academically rigorous coursework. So what you're going to see here is you're going to see some things that are both inside of the classroom and outside of the classroom. So a couple of those items there, the 32 AP courses and exam opportunities, pathway concentration opportunities, 16 dual enrollment courses. We have a lot of connections to colleges. So we see early college credits being accepted. We have articulations with local colleges and universities. We have an AP capstone program. Again, all of those you're going to find pretty much within the classroom. And then we have some of the things that I think makes us a little bit different here in Appoquinimink is we're bringing those outside of the classroom things in. Excuse me. We have some great connections with industry partnerships. We have advisory boards there. You're going to see that we have work-based learning experiences for all of our students. And finally, we have a capstone portfolio, which has a capstone project for our seniors. Now, as I mentioned, we have 24 pathways, and those pathways are broken out into our 10 different schools. So this is an example here. You see our 5 schools with pathways under each. Again, an example is School of Agriculture and Natural Resources, and you see the 3 pathways under there. And here are our next 5 schools with those pathways that fall under there. So what are our next steps? We have a college and career readiness information night. Each high school hosts a night for that, and that's going to be next week, February 13th at 6 p.m. Following that, our course selection window opens for students. And finally, the big deal is scheduling for incoming freshmen will start at the beginning of March. And that takes a little bit of, little while, as you can imagine. But that's what our next steps look like. Any questions?
I don't have a question, more a comment. We know that this is kind of the envy of many places and an example used not only in Delaware, but across the United States. People want to know how we're doing this, and I think it's fabulous. As a parent in the district, I would just encourage anybody who finds it totally overwhelming to reach out and look for support. One of the best things I think that we did was highlight how you can chart all of your years at once. And so you're not missing things because you don't get to your junior year and you're like, oh, I shoulda, or I didn't. That's just a suggestion more as a parent rather than a board member. But I appreciate the work that goes into this. I really love that we involve students in the process. So those are my comments. Are there any other questions, comments from the rest of the board?
And I just wanted to add, because I know the question comes up about which pathways are the most popular that we have. So traditionally we have healthcare, engineering, computer science, junior achievement, entrepreneurship, and culinary. So once again, those are the top pathways that students are picking right now. And I also wanted to mention about JROTC. So we presented back in November about the change, and yes, it is gone as a pathway, but the idea is to actually enhance and bring more students into JROTC. And you might think, well, how are you going to do that if it's not a pathway? But we've made it a concentration to offer, so any student that's in JROTC currently, they will be able to complete their pathway. So first and foremost, that. The other students, so we surveyed them, and we currently have 195 students that want to get more information about how they can add JROTC to enhance their current pathway. So that way, because in the military, there's all kinds of different industries that are represented in the military. So the idea there is that we are going to offer information to students and allow them to sign up through the course selection process to be in JROTC.
How are the new ones getting distributed? How's the new?
Would
Are they sent out to the kids? Are they?
So
normally.
Yeah, so all students in 8th grade, this course catalog that went out that we're talking about is only for the class of 2028. Each class has their own unique course catalog. So it did go home on January 29th with students, and it's also available online on each of our websites.
We don't normally take questions from the audience, so if you have questions at the end, we'll be happy to answer them. Sorry, and thank you, Councilman Orr, for being here. Does the board have any further questions? Hearing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to the agenda, the construction update, Mr. Hopkins.
All right, we're going to start tonight with a short time-lapse video that Wedding and Turner put together, our construction manager at Reading. It shows the beginning to where we are as of last Thursday. As you can see, blank slate, nothing. And then we start coming around with the groundwork, coming around for the parking lot in the back, and the road coming around the back. Now they're getting closure completing in here, going to start the pad work. Getting set for paving. This area is paved now, and we opened it up for the summer, or for the fall school. More of the pad preparation. Down in here, we're starting the foundations, footings, concrete starting. Stair towers are going up. Starting to erect the steel. This is after our latest snow. You see we're getting the skeleton of the building up. That's where we are as of last Thursday. All right, here we go. Coming around now, we've got the skeleton starting here. This is the auditorium coming across the high bay. The joists are coming across here. This is your kitchen area. This steel's all up with the decking on. Stair towers are up. Concrete's poured throughout this area into here. They're going to try to complete this by next week. The main power line has been fed in, so we're going to have permanent power come next week, we hope, as long as the town of Middletown cooperates. Right. So we're moving along pretty well at this point. As you're seeing it here, decking going on here, concrete. After we get this, the building will start to come together because we can start the metal studs. All this masonry is coming up on this side now. And we're going to start the metal studs coming around this end of the building, working our way around. Steel's going to start hitting the classroom side, and we'll start to move faster. Pretty much the same. That's where the project is at this point. We are on time, we are on budget.
Oh, good. You answer my questions before I answer them. Does anybody else have any questions for Mr. Hopkins from the board? Hearing none, thank you very much. Moving on in the agenda, the next portion of the evening is board comments. Is there someone who would like to start?
Started.
Mr. Witt.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to say thank you to all the 1,100 teachers plus who emailed the board to say stick with 36. Your message came through very thoroughly, and we are strongly considering. Two, I want to say happy Black History Month. And third, as some of you may know, the board has started to discuss more about the strategic goal. So each one of us has chosen to do one. Mine is number 2. Number 2 is for fostering a supportive environment for our staff and students. With that goal, I work with Gina Robinson, who is our assistant superintendent at the far right of the table. With her, we just highlight the things that the district is doing to support that strategic goal. Information provided by Ms. Robinson is the district is doing a Family Connect session, which is underway with the 4th session, focusing on effective communication in home setting, which was held last week. And in further sessions, there will be a restorative practice training of trainers, continuing with the 4th session, focusing on classroom circles. This training will then be redelivered to all staff in all buildings throughout the district. Along with the support, myself and Ms. Graham supported Mr. Tiberi with the Project Soapbox, which allowed some students to come on stage and provide their oracle skills, speaking in public and just getting some feedback on that, which was one of the highlights of my month last month. And lastly, I just want to thank the staff that go above and beyond in our district. I was at a basketball event last Friday, and I saw Mr. Banks and Miss Amber Magyar. They were out there supporting a student in their classroom who had nothing to do with this. It was a church basketball league, and I saw them sitting in the stands. I'm like, well, what are you guys doing here? Do you guys don't attend my church? It was like, no, we're here supporting a student. So again, I know Stick with 36 said a lot, but it means a whole lot when I see our teachers going above and beyond past, being in the building to come out and still support students, which they don't have to do. So thank you for all you do, and have a good night.
Thank you.
I'll go, Ms. Wall.
Mr. Abrams.
I'd like to thank everybody who's worked tirelessly over the last few months, actually probably for a year now. Answering questions, going to a referendum is no easy task, especially district office, Dr. Burrows, Mr. Loftus have fielded many questions from the board, trying to figure out what we can do, where we can go, and how do we get there. I know the referendum failed in December. I was pleasantly surprised in January when we got here for our meeting. This room was inundated with teachers. I was very happy to see that. To make no mistake about it, without teachers, we are nobody. You guys have a tremendously hard job to do. I do understand the pay gap. I do understand the bridge gap. I understand all that. How do we get there? Well, hopefully we can get there. We have a plan, hopefully tonight, to get you there. To the people who went out and voted, thank you for taking the time to vote. Whether you voted yes or no, thank you for voting. Believe it or not, there's a lot of issues circulating on social media that is accurate and inaccurate. Not everything is true on social media. All I ask you and my fellow board members would probably say the same thing. Know the facts, understand the facts. And if you don't know the facts or understand the facts, call any one of us. We'll answer your questions. All night, all day, 10 hours, it doesn't matter, whatever it takes. And I'll waste 8 hours talking to you, even if you're still a no vote. You just should understand the facts, where the district is, where the district wants to go. Believe it or not, it's a very difficult decision moving forward where we go. The referendum didn't pass. If it doesn't pass, there are drastic measures down the road. I hope you're all right. I hope you're right that it is just the message wasn't clear. We had a few hiccups in the road, and we're going to get there. Not imagine this district that I have been involved with in 25 years facing the situation it's facing tonight over the next few months, should this referendum not pass. Please just know the facts, understand the facts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Only thing is, well, I'm sorry. Scott, I hope we're considered the Yankees up here. If you're looking for a baseball analogy, I'm not sure, but hopefully we're doing a good enough job that you think we're at least the Yankees trying to get you there.
Phillies fan,
Well, I'm a Phillies fan, but I mean, everybody says the Yankees, they got what, 26 World Series, you know. I understand. I'm just saying, I hope that's what you think you are.
Ms. Grammer, Mr. Forson, do you have remarks?
Sure. I'll pass in the interest of time.
I'll be quick, actually, because Ms. DeWitt actually mentioned one of the events that I just wanted to speak about, which was Project Soapbox, in which we served on the panel. For any of you that joined us last or 2 weeks ago, you actually heard from one of the students, Sophie, in which she actually delivered her speech in Spanish. And interestingly enough, it was about teacher salaries. So it was great timing on Sophie's behalf. And so she had an opportunity to bring it to all of you. So hopefully you guys tuned in and you were able to hear from her. Also, as Ms. DeWitt mentioned, we all have a strategic initiative in which we work on. Mine is number 5, and it says that we live our commitment to equity and accelerate achievement for all stakeholders. This great work is led by Dr. Small and Dr. Ely. And since our last update, the HR team, the human resources team, has actually joined the Educators of Color list with DVCEE and have been working on joining the Delaware Valley Consortium on equity in education. One of the things that I continue to kind of elaborate on, and is interestingly enough is in my SI, is equity. Equity, loosely defined, is the redistribution of resources to ensure access for students that most needed. This was a equity symposium that I attended last weekend. And I just want to say, in connection to our referendum, I feel like baked into every level of our referendum is a component of equity, which is why I'm so passionate about it, whether we talk about the technology piece, we talk about the resources, the school safety, and of course, at the top for all of us is our educators. And so for me, there's a commitment there for us to get it right. And as Ms. DeWitt also mentioned, your emails were very helpful. We got them at all times of the day and night, weekend. And believe it or not, I did read every single one of them. And in fact, I actually responded to some. So we thank you all for your commitment to us. And we hope that as we get ready in a few minutes to vote, that we are able to, of course, appease you to a degree, whatever degree possible. As we go through and work through this very difficult time, we all recognize the importance of ensuring that we pass a referendum coming up in April. So we are committed to you all as much as you all are committed to us. So I thank you all in advance, and I will yield to my fellow board members for their comments. Thank you.
Mr. Forson, still, you're good?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I would be remiss if I just didn't acknowledge our superintendent. I know he's going to be very upset with me. However, I do believe in honoring people and recognizing their commitment. And I would have to say that Dr. Burrows has been recognized as our state superintendent of the year. And I think it's important that we all recognize him in his efforts. And this award to me is even more special because it's something that his peers have nominated him for and recognized his efforts. And who better understands your role than your peers? So I just wanted to say thank you. Yeah, for sure.
Board comments for myself. Since I ran for the school board 9 years ago, monthly I hold an event called Bagels with a Board Member. It's this Thursday, Manhattan Bagel, starting at 8:30, about an hour. I try to be there. to discuss issues impacting our school district. Remind you that the school board salary is zero, so your bagel's on your own dime, but you get the pleasure of my company. Coming up in the district, we are entering one of my favorite times of the year, musical season. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention that this weekend at Appoquinimink High School, they'll be presenting Charlie Brown, both starting Thursday night. I think it's Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday a matinee, and an evening performance. Please check it out. Also on Saturday, the district will be having an event honoring National Girls and Women's in Sports Day. And since professionally I work for the Office of Women's Advancement and Advocacy, I feel like it's important to highlight that our district is participating in that event. Before we have our next board meeting, the Odessa musical will be starting. So the first weekend in March and the second weekend in March, they're presenting Beauty and the Beast. The first weekend, it's Friday night and Saturday night. Second weekend, it's Friday night, Saturday night, and the Saturday matinee with a character meet and greet. So check that out. Middletown's is the very following weekend, but we have a board meeting before then. So I'll have an opportunity to highlight that for you. The district does great things, those kind of things that we love to invite the public to, so we can showcase things that are happening in our schools. I don't think I have any other additional public comments other than the echo of my peers. Thank you to everyone for reaching out. We heard loudly from educators, and just like in times of COVID, we heard from the other side too. So it's important to know that there's a balance. I think in this room, we have a large population that we love and support and our like-mindedness, but we have to remember that when we sit here, we represent everybody. And the most important thing is for this referendum to pass, because what this district would look like if it didn't is dire. So that's all I have for tonight.
One more comment. As Michelle stated, we have some art programs coming up in the near future. So before we continue with our agenda, I want the people out there and the people in the audience who did say no to recognize that the students that were up here today recognized for being in the all-state choir band and all those fabulous things. Think about those things as extras for our district that may possibly get cut as a result of your no's. We had championship games from Cantwell Cobras. They won their championship. I think it's the second year in a row. We have, intramural sports at the middle school level. So all of those things just don't come because they attend Appoquinimink School District. They're extras. So remember, when you think about the no, think about your student sitting at home at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock with nothing else to do. When you remove things like arts and sports from kids' lives, you have increased crime. Not that Middletown has that much to deal with, but it's a factor that we have to think about. When kids are no longer busy, they're going to be on those iPads, on those phones that you barely can get rid of, because if you do, it's like they're going to commit suicide. So, I mean, that was really probably a bad joke, but it's not great when kids are tied to these phones and these TVs and these computer games. So again, when you think about the no, think about all those things that will impact your student. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. DeWitt. Are there any additional board comments before I move on in the agenda? There is no old business listed on the agenda, so the first item on new business is the January 9th, 2024 board meeting minutes for approval.
Madam President, I'll make a motion that we approve the January 9, 2024 board meeting minutes as presented.
I have a motion by Mr. Forston and a second by Ms. DeWitt to approve the January 9th, 2024 board minutes as presented. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next agenda item is the January 25th, 2024 board meeting minutes for approval. As you can tell, we've been meeting often.
Madam President, I'll make a motion that we approve the January 25th, 2024 board meeting minutes as presented.
I have a motion by Mr. Forston and a second by Ms. DeWitt to approve the January 25th, 2024 board minutes as presented. Any questions, comments, or concerns on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm sorry, aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the monthly financial report for approval. Mr. Loftus.
The Financial Advisory Committee met last Tuesday, January 30th, and we reviewed the December revenue and expenditure report at that time, and the committee recommended approval of that report.
Madam President, I'll make a motion that we approve the monthly financial report for December 31, 2023, as recommended by the Financial Advisory Committee.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Forston and a second by Mr. Abrams to approve the monthly financial report as presented and as suggested as approved by the Financial Advisory Committee. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next agenda item, the internal accounts reports for approval. Mr. Loftus.
Financial Advisory Committee also reviewed the December internal accounts report and recommended approval of that report as well.
Madam President, I'll make a motion that we approve the internal account report dated December 31, 2023, as recommended by the Financial Advisory Committee and as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Forston and a second by Mr. Abrams to approve the internal accounts reports as presented and as recommended by the Financial Advisory Committee. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns on this motion? All those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next agenda item will be the FY 2024 final budget for approval. Mr. Loftus.
So we have a slide presentation. I guess before I even go into this, we reviewed the final budget last Tuesday with the Financial Advisory Committee, and they did recommend approval of the budget as well. If you could go to the next slide. So we talked a lot about the budget when we discussed the financial position report on the 25th. So some of this information is slightly redundant, but I'm going to go over the carryover. I'm going to talk about the revenue and expenditure, some of the big changes that we saw. And then I'm briefly going to just touch on some Newcastle County comparable data. So just for a little bit of history, we ended last year at a $7 million carryover balance. When we put together the preliminary budget originally this year, we were at $3.7 million carryover budget. And so we knew in the preliminary budget, we had to get to the $4.1 million carryover. So just for clarification for the board and the audience, the state requires school districts to carry over 1 month's local salary at the end of June to have those funds on hand to carry over to make sure we can make payroll and pay bills and things like that that we need to pay in July, August, September, and until we get into October. The chart that's below here is showing how we bring in the revenue throughout the year. And so what's happening is there's a big spike in October because the property tax bills go out in July. Companies, generally your escrow companies, are getting those bills in August, and then they're remitting payments in September to the county. The county holds them for a month, and then we get that money in October. So unlike the state, which does income taxes on April 15th or whenever, the state goes into July already fully, they've got all the revenue that they're going to collect for basically for the year. We have to wait until late October to get the bulk of our property tax on the local side to get us through the year. So the final budget shows that we're coming in at 3.75 million in carryover. We're looking for a $4.1 million number. The reason we've got this here is there's also a $350,000 contingency budget, which is in the budget as intending to be spent, but we never spend it. And so the idea would be we try to hold that to where we're not spending the contingency line item, and that would fall into the carryover to bring us to the $4.1 million number. Next slide. So on the revenue side, there's about $5.5 million in additional revenue coming from the state. And that's just, there's some increases we didn't pick up in the preliminary budget in terms of the 6% stipend for teachers, some additional pots of units that the state allocated in the budget. And so we're truing that up in the final budget here. Equalization, because of the increase in enrollment that we have in our district, we picked up, so this is a true number now for the rest of the year. That's adding about $434,000 to our revenue. And then in local revenue, due to the growth of homeowners moving in adds to our revenue. And this is a cycle that happens for the most part every year. So we're predicting about another $300,000 in local revenue due to property tax revenue. On the expense side, the state salary line item on the revenue side exactly matches the expense side of things. We're also seeing on the local salary side about a $1.1 million increase in spending. That's what's happening with the fact that we've got teacher vacancies. Part of the issue that we're seeing is that when there's a vacant classroom and we have to put a long-term sub, or we're pulling a paraprofessional and asking them to replace a teacher for a period of time, the additional cost that we're incurring is all on the local side. Whereas if there's a teacher that's in that classroom, 70% of that cost is the state portion of that unit or that teacher salary, and then roughly 30% of that cost is our local cost. We're getting hit with more costs because of these vacancies. So that's what's factoring into the 1.1 million there. Maintenance, some increases there, which were just part of some ESSER money that we had that was planned. And then per some of the discussions we had on the 25th, we talked about budget reductions of $400,000 to get us to where we need to be for the carryover. So on just real brief, absolutely.
Can you go back 2 more slides? I'm going to be, yeah, okay. So on this slide, which showed the carryover information, we were preliminarily looking at 3.7 million. We need 4.1, correct, to carry over?
Correct.
So we need to kind of increase our carryover balance by about 400,000 over the preliminary budget. So I think, can we go to the second slide? So we got additional revenue. The state salaries cancels out with additional cost. So as I read this, we got about 700,000 in additional revenue, right?
Correct.
Okay, but then if we go to the next slide, our local salary expense went up 1.1 million. So, I mean, it looks like we actually lost money, if I'm following this correctly.
So when you look at the actual budget, I'm showing here highlights. When you look at the actual budget, there's puts and takes in a number of different places.
So this isn't everything. This is just kind
absolutely right.
Just hitting the highlights. Okay.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's literally 30 different items within the operating units switched. For example, legal costs, we're seeing a slight increase in that, so we increased the budget for that.
First thing we do is fire all the lawyers, right? Shakespeare said it differently, but okay.
So there's puts and takes all along, but the idea is that this budget shows a $3.75 million carryover.
Okay. No, I understand.
And when you add the, right, okay.
Thank you.
So
Just if you're just happen to be joining us and this is your first budget presentation, the preliminary budget is always online after it's approved by the board. And after the final budget is approved by the board, it's online too. It's an effort for the district to remain transparent with the public about our budget. I just think it's important time to highlight, as I always try to use a board meeting as an educational opportunity.
Just some future items to keep in mind. Statewide, the court order for reassessment is going through. The way that we understand it currently is that people will get their new assessed value, property value, sometime in the winter of 25 or 24. So November, December, and then you have a period of a couple of months in which you can appeal the value directly to Tyler Technologies if you feel that it's overvalued or undervalued. I can't imagine, but and then by the time we get to March, Tyler Technologies will no longer be doing the appeals process. And so from March till June, you would appeal directly with the county for any appeals. And then we would go live with the new assessments in July of 2025.
But again, to be clear, that the reassessment is going to be revenue neutral, so that if, let's say, the total assessed value, it may change for individual properties, but overall for the district, if, let's say, our assessment base doubled, our tax rates would get cut in half. So, come this, we'll talk more about this in the fall when people start getting their new notices. Because right now, when you look at your assessment notice, it's based on their estimated fair market value on July 1, 1983. So yes, that's more than 50 years ago, right? Yeah, 40 years ago. So obviously your house is worth more than it was in 1983, but the rates are going to go down to compensate for that. So don't think, oh, suddenly my bill is going to go way up or the district is suddenly going to be awash in money. It's revenue neutral. So it's something that's going to happen, but it really isn't going to make a difference for us.
Correct. So as Mr. Forston mentioned, we'll be doing, I'm sure, some workshops to talk about that. And we'll definitely have to have a workshop where we'll talk about the rate adjusting, and we'll show all of the metrics about where we were and what the new assessment will be for the district and how the rate will adjust for that. Part of the stress that we have in any particular year is continued growth within the district, increased students, the need for additional schools, the need for additional employees in the classroom, and to support the classroom. And in the meantime, all of that impacted by a national teacher shortage. And then also referendum, April 23rd, we'll be going out to referendum. So just wanted to I know we're talking an awful lot in a number of different groups about some different comparisons about what's happening. There's a perception with a lot of people that Appoquinimink, a lot of new homes, a lot of people are moving down here, we're loaded with money. And the issue is really on the residential side. So this is assessed property value, which is what we're basing our local revenue on. On the residential side, we're not too far off of some of these other districts. The issue is there's just more houses in these other districts. So the tax is spread over a whole larger number of people. And on the non-residential, or basically the commercial side, that's where those other districts have a huge advantage over us. We've mentioned a number of times different things. They have a Christiana Mall up there. They have a Route 202 up there. They have the downtown Wilmington Business District that's pulling in a lot of revenue that we just don't have. We're appreciative of the businesses that are here. We've talked a number of times and shared the example of Home Depot, for instance. They bring in $86,000 a year in property tax revenue, and we're very appreciative of that. Christina has 3 Home Depots. So that's the difference that we're dealing with.
And we
Next.
only have about a 300 student difference between our district and Christina. So that's why it's a relative comparison.
Correct. Next slide. So on the revenue side, this here we're showing you total assessed property value, what the tax rate is for the current expense, which is the day-to-day operations of the district. And so you can see where our tax rate lines up with the other districts that we're mainly competing with to the north of us. And you can see the difference in our day-to-day tax revenue that we're using for the local portion of salaries, the curriculum, the IT, the maintenance supplies, things like that. And so you can see the difference there. And then when you take a look at the student count as of September 30th, and you take a look at the revenue per student, there's a big disparity in what our district has versus the other districts that we're competing with to the north of us. And so this is henceforth is the reason all those other districts, well, Christina went out a couple of years ago to referendum, but Brandywine's going to referendum, Colonial, Red Clay, they're all going to referendum this year, same as us. We all have similar problems. There's, as you know, step increases for our teachers, so salaries are going up each year. There's the cost of curriculum is going up, the cost of IT devices is going up, the cost of everything is going up, as we all very well know. In addition to that, what's unique about Appoquinimink is the fact that these other districts in many cases are shrinking in student size, whereas we're growing in student size. So we need to hire another 30 or 40 employees each year to keep up with that growth. We need to build more buildings to have places to put those students. And that's a whole nother level of need here that those other districts aren't seeing. But just some comparison data so that we kind of putting things in perspective as we head into April.
So before we leave this slide, though, let me emphasize, and I know everyone in this room has heard me say it, and thank you again for all coming. Really really like it when I look out and see a lot of people. I think it's good for our district. And for those of you at home who are watching what should be the highest rated show on YouTube, if you look at this slide that's up on the board now, this tells you everything you need to know about our operating referendum. And I just want to march through it again. We have the lowest by far of any tax assessment base of the 5 districts in Newcastle County. So what does that mean? That means for every penny of our property tax rate, we raise less money than every other district in Newcastle County. Now go to the next column, which is the tax rate. We have the lowest tax rate of the districts in Newcastle County. So happens to mean if you lived in a different school district, you'd be paying a lot, and lived in the same house, you'd be paying a lot more than taxes. So we have the lowest assessment, we have the lowest tax rate. If you do the math, that means, guess what? We're going to have the lowest revenue to spend on our students, yet we're the 3rd most populous district in the county. And as our president, Ms. Wall, points out, next year or the year thereafter, but within the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to be the 2nd biggest district in Newcastle County. And yet our assessment base remains by far the smallest. And if those other districts pass their referendums, we will continue to lag behind on the property tax rate. Even if if our referendum passes, and knock on wood, it should, we will still have a lower tax rate than 2 of the other districts. And as I said, if the other districts all pass their referendums, we'll continue to have the lowest tax rate. And so if you look at that last column, revenue per student that we raise, I mean, we're raising $2,800 per student. And the next lowest number in red clay is $5,200 a student. So they're getting $2,500 a student more than us. So we're going to talk a lot, I think, in a few minutes about the referendum, but this really lays the groundwork for those discussions. And, it's never easy to ask for more money. Maybe it's easy to ask. It's never easy to get more money. But this slide tells you why it's so critical, because if our district is going to just maintain where we are and trend better in the future, we need the resources that the other districts all have, because they have higher tax rates and they have higher tax assessments. So I'm previewing what I'm going to say in a little bit, but since this slide was so powerful, I thought I would take that opportunity now. So thank you, Mr. Loftus.
So the Financial Advisory Committee reviewed the budget and recommended approval.
Madam President, I'll make a motion that we approve the final 2024 fiscal year budget as presented and as recommended by the Financial Advisory Committee.
I have a motion by Mr. Forston and a second by Mr. Abrams to approve the FY 2024 final budget as presented and as recommended by the Financial Advisory Committee. Are there any additional questions, comments, concerns on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next agenda item is the school year 2024-2025 calendar committee. First reading, Dr. Feathers. Oh, Mr. Hoover, I'm sorry. She's on my agenda, so sorry. I do know who you are.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I am here to do the first reading for the academic calendar. I was here last month to do the report. So we're going to go through our slides here and hopefully get some feedback. First up, I'm not going to read everybody's name there, but I do want to thank everybody for being a part of our committee. Just like some of the things we've heard so far, when you're a part of a committee, as I think as important as the calendar committee, something that shapes what the district does for the entire school year, it's really important that we have people on there that represent a wide range of folks, as well as people who are going to speak their mind. And so I appreciate people taking their time to do that. So we kind of guide ourselves through these values, and I know I read them last time. I think it's important I read them again, so I'm going to go through them relatively quickly. We value lifelong learning for staff. We value instructional time for consistency. We value maintaining an equitable distribution of instructional time. We value parent engagement and conferences for progress monitoring. We value time for families. We value the negotiated agreement. We value every employee category. And as always, we do what is best for students. Okay, so what we did was we had the draft of the calendar. We also had the Google survey. We put that out at the last board meeting and received public comment. And what we did next was February 1st, we had our next committee meeting and we reviewed those comments and discussed them to make some revisions. So I'm actually going to start with some data here that we pulled from the survey. I will say that in years past, if you remember either Mr. Gravor or myself or Dr. Feathers talking about our feedback surveys in the past, we had something like 25 to 30 people respond. This year we had 992. Clearly, people were passionate about starting before or after Labor Day. So I will share those responses here in just a minute. Go back. Yeah. So I just wanted to show you that we did have we had an array of people responding. Obviously, a large portion of people were parents. And next slide. And 83% of them wanted to start after Labor Day. Pretty clear, public spoke. I think that's what we're going to do. So you're going to see that change in that calendar. Why we asked for feedback, and I appreciate 992 people responding. Thank you. Your say had something to do with this calendar, so thank you very much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the calendar. I did present the calendar with much more detail at last month. I think actually Dr. Feathers presented last month with lots of detail. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of go through and just kind of give you the highlights of things that we changed. And I'm also going to ask for some feedback on a couple of things as well. So when you're looking at August, there were no changes from the last meeting. September, the only change there you're going to see is that the state made the announcement that they are moving their state professional day. Typically that falls in October, but this year we have a primary election in September. So what we're doing is, or what the state is doing, they're moving their state professional day to the September date. We already were using that as a professional learning day anyway. So the only quote unquote change is that that is now the state professional day. But again, no change in the actual calendar itself. October, no change, but I wanted to clarify. We had a couple of questions on the survey, and I think Mr. Forson might have made a comment about this too. I wanted to highlight actually up at the top there where it says the PSAT. So the PSAT state date, we do not have that yet. We will have that by our hopefully we will have that by our next presentation. That's for grades 9, 10, and 11. We mentioned that we were going to do an asynchronous day for our 12th grade students. I actually think we worded it last time by saying any students not taking the PSAT, which got people confused. We didn't mean kindergartners because they're not taking the PSAT, so totally understand the confusion. So that async day would only be for 12th graders. That's it. There are some specific things that 12th graders need to work on. Okay. They just love interrupting me over here. It's okay. So 12th graders do have some specific things that they need to work on. So that's what that asynchronous day would be for them and them only. So no change in October. I just wanted to clarify that. November, no change. I just again wanted to clarify that second line at the top, that 12th graders would have an async day on the November 25th and 26th. That again would be to work on those things like work-based learning and capstone projects that seniors need to work on. Again, no change, we just changed the verbiage. December, no change. January, no change, but I'm going to talk about January a little bit here because I think we had an hour meeting and we probably talked about the winter break for 57 of those 60 minutes. So of the 992 responses to the survey, there was something about 82, 83, I don't remember the exact number, responses about winter break. So we had a long discussion about this. Currently on the calendar that was presented last month, you see that we were proposing to return from school After winter break on January 2nd and January 2nd, and we would have the Thursday and Friday that week with students and teachers. So there was some discussion about extending the break instead of having students and teachers return on the 2nd and 3rd, extending the break. The discussion was a lengthy one. There's positives and negatives to all of these. But if we extend the break out 2 days, we would push the end of the year out 2 days, right? So I'll get to that in June, but again, I'm going to be asking for your feedback on that in just a few minutes. And that is going to be something we're asking for the public's specific feedback around. Do you want a longer spring break and kids and teachers go later into June? Or do you, thank you. I got some responses. I got it.
I have to fill out the survey so we get it too.
Yeah, please. Some of you are on the committee, but please fill out that survey. So we will come back to this. Again, no changes right now, but we're going to ask for some feedback. February, there were no changes from the last presentation. March, no changes, but again, the only clarification is that that SAT date for the students, seniors who are not taking the SAT, they would have an async day. April, no change. May, no change. So let's talk about June. If we were to push back those 2 days of winter break, so instead of returning on January 2nd and 3rd, if we wanted to push things back, what we would see here is that the last day for 12th graders would move from the 3rd to the 5th. The last day for K to 11 would go from the 11th to the 13th, and the last teacher day would go from the 16th to the 18th. So obviously everything moves back, 2 days. So we'll get some feedback here in a second. As we know that our calendar goes past the end of the school year, so we can look into July with no change. And then August 25 is where you're going to start seeing some of the changes that we got from the feedback. So the new teacher week has been bumped back down to the 18th. The teacher opening day would return back to the 25th. And then if you move forward to September, the first day for students would be moved back into that first week of September. Not would be, that is the proposal now. Yep. So of course I will take any questions, but before that, I just wanted to, Steve, you could go. Sorry, one more. Yep. So we're going to send the survey out just like we did last time. We'll get feedback from folks. We'll meet as a committee. I think our next meeting is on February 28th. We'll take that feedback and any feedback from the board tonight. We'll discuss it, and then we'll come back at the next board meeting to present our final reading. So now I just wanted to go back to that piece of questions, and specifically if we have some feedback around that winter break, that would be great, but I'll take questions for anything.
So my feedback is leave it the way it is. I remember having a discussion 6, 7, maybe even 8 years ago about extending the school year in June and doing other things earlier in the school year, and being told by several people in the room that, oh no, classes in June are always never as effective as they are when they're earlier in the year. Kids are too focused on getting out, et cetera, et cetera. So
We also heard from lots of families that it's really difficult to take those 2 weeks consecutively.
right, so, yeah. So again, to the extent you care what the board says, and we'll listen to the parents. I hope we get another 900 responses.
Me too.
But my sense is that we should just leave it as is, that, 2 full weeks plus weekends is, again, I like to talk about when I went to school and we had tablets and chisels, and I remember being in school on the 24th and coming back on the 2nd. So, they're getting the 23rd and 24th off under this calendar.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
I think the most important point that was made is we need the feedback of other families. I always feel like this is the time for the, camera close up. We want to hear from you. So that's really true. So we appreciate the 900 comments, because that's what this is about. It's about taking public feedback and shaping a calendar that supports our families and our teachers, finding the balance.
Agreed.
Thank you for the close-up, Steve. I saw it in my. Careful what you ask for. Are there any other questions, comments, or concerns from the board? Hearing none, thank you very much, Mr. Hoover.
So the schedule then is,
Wait.
you'll get more comments and come back for final approval at our next meeting, correct?
Yeah, so we're going to open this up now, and we'll send out a message to get more feedback. Our next committee meeting is on February 28th. We'll look at that data just like we did again. We'll make whatever final changes, and then we'll come back in the March board meeting to do our final reading.
Thank you.
Yep.
Moving on in the agenda, we have choice applications. Ms. Lauterbach. Thank you for joining us. Always nice to see you.
Good evening. So we have done the choice lottery and we're going to ask for your approval tonight. If you want to go to the next slide. So choice opened on November 6th. It closed on January 10th. And then choice for kindergarten is still open until the first day of school or until we reach capacity. Next slide. This is the application process. We ask for parents to provide report card attendance and discipline. In district, I look at that all on our eSchool. And then for out of district, they have to provide it for the application process. Next slide. Here's the criteria for coming to our district. So first is returning students who continue to meet the school requirements, siblings of students already enrolled in the school that want to return to the school the following year, children of employees, students living within the Appoquinimink School District not enrolled in Appoquinimink School District, and then outside of the district. Next slide, please. Criteria for denial is schools are at 85%, students have been suspended or expelled from another district of residence, and then students who have exceeded the absences of 15 days. Next slide. These are the number of applications received, as you see, and then the number of students that we're inviting is 822, and then it breaks down returning, sibling, employees, and immersion. And then we withdrew 256, and that withdrawal is either they didn't have the required documents or their attendance, discipline, and grades did not meet our requirements. Next slide.
So if I'm doing the math right, that is 1,078 either
So it will not
invited
add
or
up.
withdrawn.
It won't add up because some applications are double, like they'd apply for immersion and then they apply for regular ed. So the numbers will not add up for you.
Okay,
Yep.
I'm just doing the math. That's
Yeah,
all.
so I received 1,352 applications, and we the active applications was 1,096, and then we withdrew the 256. That would all add up. It won't add up the siblings and that information.
No, I get that. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Next slide. So the duration of enrollment, once you're accepted into our program, you would be there for K, 1st through 5th, 6th through 8, 9 through 12, with a choice application. Once you have accepted into the district, we hope you will remain for at least 2 years. And students that fail to meet the academic requirements will be withdrawn from the program. Next slide.
Just one question on that. If I have choiced in for 1st through 5th grade, obviously I have no guarantees of going to 6th grade because that's in a different building. But if there's openings and I'm already here as a choice student, do I get a preference over, I'll say, first-time choice students who have been
So
here
we
at all?
like to continue that, but now as we are getting full at our middle and high, it's becoming a little bit more challenging.
No, I understand. My question is, if I'm a choice student in 5th grade and I want to go to 6th grade here, do I get a preference over a choice student who has never been here before, who also wants to go into 6th grade?
It depends if you're in or out of district, because it would still go by the priority.
Right. Okay.
And then I just wanted to let parents know that once you guys vote on the electronic lottery tonight, then the invitations would go out sometime next week via email, and they would have until March to accept or reject the invitations.
Thanks, Julie.
And do we have a waiting list or anything then?
We do have waiting lists at good amount of our schools.
And you submitted the list of students who you've accepted, and you're recommending those students that they be
Correct.
allowed to
That's
choice.
the 822 kids that we're going to be inviting.
Madam President, I'll make a motion that we approve the 822 students as recommended here tonight.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Forston and a second by Mr. Witt to approve the choice applications as presented. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns on this motion? Dr. Burrows, can you just speak to what choice means? Like, that's one of those things that we get sometimes during the referendum. People have questions. Just debunk some of the choice myth.
Sure. So as was mentioned, there's a law for choice. It is a state law. If we're at below 85% capacity at a grade level, we're required to take choice into that grade level, into that building.
So an example could be like second grade at Bunker Hill. It's not necessarily capacity of the building, it's by grade.
Correct. And then we also have some programs that are like immersion, for example, is first filled by district students, but then if there's open seats, it is offered to outside district. I think a key point to that is if we take a student from outside the district, the local, which was shown up there, the local portion of what goes with, travels with that student. So as you saw, we are about $2,500 per student. Everyone else is either twice as much or 3 times as much as what we are. So that local share comes with that student if they come from another district.
So people who think that choice is an expense to our district, it's actually not.
And we're making money, relatively speaking.
Right.
Okay, just wanted to clarify in case anybody had a question or concern about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any additional questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. Moving on in the agenda, we will look at the approval of overnight field trips. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I'll make a motion that we approve trip ID 9205 for a June 2024 Appoquinimink High School student trip to experience art in Italy and France, where there's a lot of good art. We gave preliminary approval for this trip back in 2023. I'll also, as part of the same motion, move or include trip ID 9739, May 2024, Appoquinimink High School students to compete in the Indoor Music Atlantic Coast Championships.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mr. Forston and a second by Mr. Abrams to approve trip ID 9205 and trip ID 9739. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns on this motion? I just feel like it's important as we continually talk about money that these are trips covered by student funds. All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda, change orders for approval, Mr. Hopkins.
Okay, we're recommending change orders for approval. We have the change orders as discussed in the executive last month for Whiting and Turner's contract. We have change orders for Reading Middle School for some heavy-duty asphalt and rate like $89,000. We are doing some acceleration of the project with concrete. It was $115,000. And then for Crystal Run, we actually have some credits back and allowances in the amount of about $60,000. So we're recommending these for approval and we're seeking approval.
Madam President, I'll make a motion that we approve the change orders as presented and as recommended by Mr. Hopkins.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Forston and a second by Mr. Abrams to approve the change orders as presented. Any questions, comments, or concerns on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on, the operational and capital referendum, April 23rd, 2024. Dr. Burrows.
Good evening. So last month I had the opportunity, I guess January 25th, I came up and talked about the previous referendum. I also talked about, without a successful referendum on April 23rd, why we would need to make $5 million in cuts, and then outline some of what those cuts would be. So tonight we're looking at our April 23rd referendum and what's going to be part of that April 23rd referendum. I like to start with the capital side of it first. So in the last 5 years, we've almost grown 2,000 students. We've seen that growth rate over the last 15 years. We continue to grow. By federal law, we have to have a place to put kids. So we go through a long planning process. We have a building utilization committee that meets, and we actually have a 10-year building plan that looks at the trends of growth in our community, and we plan out when and where we're going to need schools. We then have to submit our request and prove that we need those facilities to the state of Delaware, our certificate of necessity, and then they look at it and they run their numbers and they see what will be approved. This past year, there was 10 school districts that put in, us being one of them, for $1.5 billion in request. We were at the top of the list. Our district received the most money out of that because of our need, because of our growth. So the state, we're looking to build a new elementary school on Green Giant Road and a new middle and high school on the Summit Bridge campus. The state covers 77% of that on a 20-year bond, and we as a community are responsible for the other 23% of that on a 20-year bond. It's about a $290 plus million, all those projects together. Our share of that is about 66.5 million that we would need to bond on a 20-year bond, which represents a 3-cent tax ask to build 3 schools. For the average homeowner, that means about $2.50 a month, or $3 for a month for that ask. The alternative is where do we put those students that would go into that building, that would go into those buildings? 2 things would happen. Either one, you stay in your existing buildings, so which means class sizes would increase because we wouldn't have places to put the kids. And then another option is adding modular units onto schools. And we have modular units on schools. The expense, though, of adding modular units, which is 100% local expense. So we showed up there, we bring about $37 million locally. That would be 100% cost to us. It would come out of that $37 million, which is money that we're using to pay staff and for supplies and things like that. That expense, 100% local, as I just mentioned. You're looking at probably for the need that we would have that would address for those buildings that we're building, that would be about $9 million locally that we would need for that number of students for modular units, installing those, maintaining them, the general lease on those. And those modular units have like a 5 to 6 year life expectancy until we have to do repairs and things to those units. So all in all, this is a bargain compared to what the alternatives are for this. So my ask is, again, to ask for 3 cents to bond the approximately $66.5 million for a new middle, high school, and elementary school on the capital side.
Madam President, I'll make a motion that we go out to referendum to increase our capital tax rate by approximately 3 cents for the 3 schools, as has been discussed many times at prior board meetings, and it's just summarized by Mr. Burrows, and then I'll elaborate further if my motion gets a second.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Forston and a second by Ms. Graham to move forward with the capital portion at 3 cents. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns on this motion? Mr. Forston.
Thank you. So, I agree often with Mr. Burrows, and this is one that we should all agree, Dr. Burrows, sorry. And this is one we should all agree on. And for the life of me, if you can't support this capital request, please call me, because there's no way that it makes sense to vote against this, only because of the numbers. These three schools, a new state-of-the-art high school, a new state-of-the-art middle school, a new state-of-the-art elementary school, will service roughly 3,000 kids. 1,600 for high school, 800 for middle and elementary school, 3,000 to keep the math easy. So if you assume that one trailer has 4 classrooms, each classroom has 25 student capacity, that means you need 30 trailers for 3,000 kids. They're unsightly, they're horrible. Kids are having to walk outside in the snow, the rain, whatever, to get to classes they might have inside a building or outside a building. The trailers cost about $350,000 each to install. You got to grade a pad site, you got to run utilities and all that sort of stuff. Then you got to put it in place. So just to install 30 trailers, which only have a life of 5 to 6 years before you start running into issues with them, is $10.5 million. That doesn't include all the other costs associated with them. And as Dr. Burrows said, that comes out of our operational budget, which we're only local, which we're only raising $37 million right now operationally, and it's all on us. So, we talked at our last meeting about what happens if the referendum on the operational side doesn't pass and we face significant cuts to our budget. But imagine if, in addition to those $5 million in cuts, we had to cut another $10.5 million or $10 million. That's a disaster. And so for the life of me, as I said, I don't think anybody who takes 5 minutes, and shouldn't even take 5 minutes, to think about this can vote in good conscience against this part of the referendum. To do so actually costs the district money in the long run. And your property taxes are going to increase $2.50 a month. I mean, before COVID, that might have been the cost of a Big Mac. Today, it's not even the cost of a Big Mac, right? I mean, it's just crazy to vote against the capital referendum. I think it's short-sighted and wrong. So this should be an easy ask, and it should be first on the ballot, and we should all support the capital referendum, period. End of story.
Are there any other questions, comments, or concerns on this portion of the referendum? Hearing none, all those in favor vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, now on the probably a little harder side. So thank you for your support on those buildings, but we can have 3 brand new buildings, but if we do not have the staff to put in those buildings, they're museums in some aspect. So I think it's important. We showed the data up here. We showed our revenue. We showed our need. I've mentioned this several times in my ask. Our most valuable resource is our people. So again, I'm going to stick with my ask, my recommendation that we've had from the cabinet for myself the last few meetings. The recommendation to make sure that we keep our teacher shortage, our educator compensation plan where it is. I also feel that the supporting aspects of this are very important. The additional 7 cents that we were asking on top of that. I know it's a tough decision. I know the feelings of the board on that aspect of it, but whatever we go for outside of the 43 cents, there's going to be things that we're not going to be able to do as we move forward. And I just think we have to be clear on that as we look at this. But put my recommendation out there is again 43 cents, and turn it over to you at this time.
Madam President, I'll make a motion that we increase the operational tax rate by 39.5 cents. And if I get a second, I'll explain my reasons. And that would include.
Wait, what did you just say?
39.5 cents. And that would include all of the money that we want to use to address the teacher shortage and teacher compensation and retention. And then would include 3.5 cents for the other items that were in the, that we were talking about in the prior referendum.
Is there a second? Hearing no second, motion fails.
Yes, it does.
Is there another motion?
Madam President, I'll make a motion to make a recommendation for capital referendum 39.9 cents.
Operational.
Operation, I'm sorry.
39.9.
0.9.
Okay. I have a motion for 39.9 cents. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Forston. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns on this motion? I currently have a motion on the floor for an operating budget increase 39.9.
So, Madam President, I started off by recommending a little bit more than that. I'm not going to lose a lot of sleep over 0.4 cents. I just like the fact it was half of the 7. But you have to face facts. I mean, you know, the referendum, I like the referendum process because it forces us to go out and talk to the community in a meaningful way and to really listen. And we went out to the community last December. We spent a lot of time getting ready for that referendum. We put a lot of thought into it. We explained what we wanted and why. And for better or worse, it failed. Now, I'm sure everybody in this room voted in favor of it. I have no doubt about that. You know, and I'm fond of saying that we all live in our bubbles, right? So we talk to the people that we know, and we tend to sort ourselves out these days on people who agree with us. And some of us watch one channel, and some of us watch a different news channel, and some of us get our news off social media, which is even scarier. But it failed. And there's nothing we can do about that. But I do think that the definition of insanity is trying the same thing and expecting different results. And I also think we have to listen to those folks. They were in the majority in that election. And so I think if we just went out at 43 cents again, and I've talked with Dr. Burrows about this, and he and I disagree, but I think if we just go out again at 43 cents and say, yeah, we heard how you voted, we're going out for 43 cents again anyway, because we'll think we'll do a better job persuading you this time. I don't think that's a realistic strategy. I'm sorry I don't, which is why I seconded my friend Mr. Abrams' motion. So that is a reduction of almost 10% in terms of the ask. But we do have a teacher shortage. It needs to be addressed. The funds are still in there to do all of what we want to do for our staff. And there are additional funds in there to do other things. Not everything we wanted, but the community has spoken. And I just think it would be a mistake to go out at the same number a second time. So with that, I'm going to support 39.9 cents.
Go ahead, go ahead. No, you go first.
I was just going to say, so a point of clarity, just so we're all on the same page. And Mr. Abrams, correct me if I'm wrong, your recommendation of 39.9 holds the 36 cents as it was initially recommended, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And while I understand whatever, yes, mine is including 36 cents for teacher retention and the other things that got shot down, there may be some creative working arounds and financing. We can get those things also to happen, but the teacher shortage is the number one thing we need to address.
Okay, yes, I just wanted to be clear for everyone to make sure that they understand that even with the reduction of 39.9, it is still holding at 36 cents for recruitment and retention.
That is correct.
Okay.
Part of it too is that in the governor's proposed budget, there's it's late, safety and security money that is proposed in the governor's budget. And then part of that ask that we were looking at for the original referendum ask included safety and security. Is our hope that by not including that in the referendum, that will be included in the governor's budget, and that we're showing that as being fiscally responsible to the community and reducing the ask a bit. but we do hold true that that 36 cents is important. You're hearing that from all of us up here. We're going forward with this because what makes our district great isn't our buildings, it's the people we put in them, both our kids and our staff. And our role here at this board, we have to find a balance. And I think we do a really good job here trying to be fiscally conservative, spending the money we have, taking the time to explain to people where the shortcomings are. We're not going to stop doing that, but we have to look at things in short-term and long-term goals. Our short-term goal is to pass this referendum because of the dire implications if we don't. So a no might be a no, no matter what the amount is, but a yes needs to be a resounding yes. And we sat up here and said it was really hard to ask our community for a big ask, and that we would have to, take into consideration what people said. And where we heard from lots and lots and lots and lots of teachers to keep 36, we want to do that. We also heard from people that they want us to continue taking looks and being fiscally responsible. We represent those people too. So that's where we're at. This isn't easy. It's not where we want to be ever, but I don't want to have to come before you and say, this is where I have to cut $5 million, and that these are people that I value in our community that will no longer be here. So to me, reducing the ask by a bit is not my first choice at all. But if it makes it more palatable for some people to say yes, then I feel like that's an important decision. But I don't want anyone to leave here thinking that we didn't take it lightly or that we don't value our educators. So if you take anything away from tonight, it's that our support of you is very important to all of us.
So 2 follow-up thoughts real quick. First, we all got a lot of emails from folks here in the audience and folks who are hopefully watching us on Must See TV. We need all of you to get out and vote. So if you're in favor of the referendum, it's April 23rd, right? If you're not in favor of the referendum, I think it's in May or something like that. But we laugh, but it did not pass 6 weeks ago. And so we should not take anything for granted at all if we want this referendum to pass. Everybody who voted last time, find somebody who didn't vote and get them to vote. And get them to vote yes. If they're going to vote no, you can leave them. But if they're going to vote yes, get them out. It's all about voter turnout. And then the other thing that it's about, we had this slide up earlier during Eric Loftus's presentation about the budget. It really sums up everything you need to know about this referendum, but also about why we need the money in the sense that we are so thrifty. I think that's a positive word. We're frugal. We're fiscally conservative in how we spend our money, and yet we're providing, I think, one of the best educations, well, certainly the best education in the state. But we're not going to be able to do that if we have to cut $5 million from our budget for next year. So this is really, really important at this point that people understand this. And there's so many myths out there circulating on social media. Oh, this money is just going to go to administrators. As it turns out, we have the fewest administrators of any of the districts in Newcastle County, and we're not looking to add any as a result of this referendum. There's all sorts of myths. We don't need the money. Not true. Show them this. Reassessment's going to solve everything. We talked about that earlier. Reassessment's going to be revenue neutral. And again, if you lived in a different district, and perhaps some of you work here but do live in a district to the north, you're paying more in property taxes, and you're going to be paying more in property taxes even when this referendum passes. So I just want to emphasize that. Find this slide, memorize it.
In the short term, we need the community's support on passing the referendum. In the long term, we need the same kind of support for systematic changes in Delaware funding of education. We met this morning in our efforts with all of the legislators that represent our district and tried to explain to them all of these numbers as well. I'm not going to sit here and say I don't think other districts have different issues, but our issue is growth, and our community can't keep up with it. And well, Mr. Loftus has shared that 6 years ago, the difference was 80% of our revenue was based residentially and 20% was commercially. And people are saying, well, we have Westtown, we have this, we have that. Well, right now, 85% of our community is our residential tax base and 15% is our commercial. So we're growing, but we're growing people way before we're growing commercial. So when we make this ask, we understand, the 5 of us who sit up here, that we're asking it of our neighbors, but it's for our community that we're asking our neighbors. So
I do have a comment. So while I don't want to be up here and undecided, I do believe in that the cabinet they're the people that we have to trust, and they know what our district needs. While we may want to appease to the no voters at this time, this boardroom hasn't been this packed in the last, well, since I've been on the board. The last three meetings have been packed. This to me shows that people are now interested. We have people on social media like Ms. Baker, who's in the audience. I see her commenting. I see a lot of staff commenting on there. Things have shifted, and to me, I have the confidence of our teachers and our staff and the employees of the district that they're going to help push us over what we need for this referendum. So while I hear what you and Richard, Norm, what you and Richard have stated, I just don't believe that in order for us to move forward with the growth, we need the resources, we need the safety, we need everything that this budget says we need, or this referendum says we need for us to move forward. So I'm not up here because I just don't want to do it. I think that we have to have the confidence in Dr. Burrows, the superintendent of the year, along with his cabinet, in making a decision to just stick with 43. There's nothing against the people that said no. They're going to still say no. Let's move forward with the yes votes. That's my take.
Madam President.
Motion on the floor.
yeah, the motion's on the floor for 39.9.
Madam President, if I could just,
Sure.
as somebody who's been here for 25 years, 15 years up here, if 39.9, when it passes, that will still be the largest ask of this community for a referendum. I understand bridge the gap, close the gap. I understand the teacher compensation. We still have to get it to pass. And as many people have written to us for it, have written to us the opposite side. Your point was eloquently spoken that we represent the community. We're still making a 100% attempt to close the teacher compensation, get the teacher shortage under control. I believe if we get this referendum passed, dive through this other things, that we can still get what this district wants, but we must pass the referendum. Because I didn't pick 43 cents does not mean I don't support any one of you out there. I do. I would hate like hell to come back here come May and this doesn't pass at 43 and we're cutting 5 million. We're sticking with the to close the gap, get the teacher shortage under control. If that's what we walk away from this, then we've got to win. If we don't walk away from that, we've lost. Because each and every one of you sitting in this room that have packed this house for the last 3 months will be for vain and you won't be here. There's just no doubt about that in the budget. I can't fix that. It is what it is. The people are moving here. I have no control over that. The 5 of us have no control of that. Dr. Burrows cannot control the people moving here. Your elected officials do that. We are reactionary. They're here. We have to put them somewhere. I stand behind you guys 100%, as the 5 of us up here do, as the man down there supports you every day. We're here for you, but we have to make sure this referendum passes. If you have any problems with what I've done tonight, please see me.
Do you have any comments?
No, I made my comment. I just wanted to clarify that, and I've already said it, you know, we're holding the 36 of the 39.9, I believe, is the recommendation on the floor, right?
Yep. All those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Motion carries 4-1. Do I need to poll the board?
The minutes ought to reflect who voted for what.
Okay. All right, moving on in the agenda. The next item is the personnel report. Dr. Small.
Good evening again. The personnel report for the month of February has been presented for your review. We are asking for your approval as presented.
Are there any?
Madam President, I'll make a motion that we approve the personnel report as presented and as recommended by Dr. Small.
I have a motion by Mr. Forreston and a second by Ms. Graham to approve the personnel report as presented. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I neglected in my public comment or my board comments to announce the timeline for school board elections. There is a seat up for school board. The deadline to file for the seat is Friday, March 1st at 4:30. The board election is Tuesday, May 14th, and the swearing in of a new board member would be Tuesday, June 11th. If you have any questions about running for the school board, please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us. We'll be happy to tell you all about it. Then the next agenda item is the establishment of the upcoming meeting dates. The next meeting of the Financial Advisory Committee is scheduled for Tuesday, March 5th at 6 o'clock in the Finance Conference Room of the Tonio Marcio Building. And the next regular Board of Education meeting is Tuesday, March 12th at 7 o'clock in the boardroom. That's all we have for tonight. Again, thank you so much for joining us, and thanks for what you do every day for kids. Good night.